Alright guys, this is going to be practice video number 3. And second to clouds, the most requests I get for learning how to do is the Nebula. And it's the same technique, and we're just doing it on, you know, a black canvas instead. And this one happens to have some texture on it already. And I'm going to do this with this color, the Matisse Flow Magenta. And to get some metallic in there, I'm using this golden iridescent bronze. And then just this Liquitex Basics yellow. And the same supplies from before, this fine mist water sprayer and the Mop Brush, dry. And then you can use any other kind of brush that you want to do the wet part for color application. Every kind of brush you use is going to give you a different result. Something like this. You can use a little angled brush. Those are my two favorite. If you're doing a huge piece, use something bigger. Or a filbert. Just whatever you have around, really. But the important part is the dry mop brush. So, like all the other ones, just mist your canvas a bit before you get started. Get your brush wet. Make sure your paint is on the watery side. And then you can just start making shapes. The more watery it is, the bigger kind of shapes you're gonna get. And you'll see as you experiment with this that everything you do, you know, changes your result slightly. So you just kind of learn what amount of water you need, what amount of paint you need to get the effect you're really looking for. And then once you do, you can pretty much apply it to, you know, any type of element that you want. So because this is pretty wet, I'm gonna leave it for a second so I don't get big blobs. It's not quite what we're going for. Dab in a little bit of yellow here and there. I usually do the metallics on top of everything else so that sheen stays visible. So I'm just gonna go through and start. You're gonna lose little pieces of your brush sometimes. You just gotta pick them out. If you start to get edges that you find to be too sharp or too spiky, just come back on them in the other direction. Like this, if I shove this out a whole bunch and I don't like it, I can just start pulling it back the other direction or down or up just to soften it. If there's little spots that like dry in a way that I don't like, I'll just come back over them with the color that I want. And then the water that goes onto it will move that shape that you didn't like as well, so you can rework it. Kind of reminds me of a carnival. See these shapes down here that just dried into something that I didn't really want. You can just go back over that with, you know, paint and a little water, and you'll be able to rework it. That's why I love acrylic. See, like this got too dry here, so I'm just gonna give it a little bit of mist, and then it becomes pliable again. Same here. When you have thicker areas of paint like this here, and you want to leave a space, or you know, an area that has a really high contrast and that's not blended out as much, just kind of work around those little bits, kind of getting the stuff around it moved before it dries, and then you can come back to that when it's a little bit drier and it'll move less, so that you can leave those areas that pop a little bit more. So then I would come in with the metallic, this guy. And this is a pretty runny paint, so it works well for this. This, you want to keep your brush pretty wet. And then decide where you're going to put it. Doesn't really matter. You can do it along the edge of some stuff. With this, I go in and do the movement right away, so it doesn't dry in such a thick, sharp line. You can add more water, you know, do it even thinner, and then you'll see here it moves a lot more, and you cover more space with it. It's just thinner. I accidentally just flung those 3 spots, and they kind of look good, so I'm gonna leave them there. Oh, I just flung some more. See how I did that now? If you do it really thin too, if you just like keep adding water and you take, you know, the metallic that you're using over top of the other colors, you're still gonna be able to see that color. It's just gonna have kind of that metallic sheen over it, which is cool too. It's really whatever the F you want. So this is a 16 by 20 canvas, and I've been able to get through this entire painting using just one mop brush. Like I said in previous videos, if you you want to keep this dry the whole time, so if you get to the point where the brushes or the bristles are sticking together and making, you know, hard chunks, then you want to switch it out and just put it in the water and go on to another one. But with these smaller canvases, the 16 by 20, I've been able to get through this whole thing, like I said, without having to switch brushes. To give you an idea, like on the bigger ones I do, like say a 30 by 40, I'm going through probably 2 to 4 brushes on a canvas that size in one session. Okay, so now for the stars. And the way these bronze ones landed on here on accident, I like, so I'm gonna do some more of those, but on purpose. And that's how you come across like half the stuff that you do when you're making stuff, is just by experimenting and, you know. So I'm just getting paint on here, and the brush is wet, and I'm just gonna like tap it against my finger a couple times and get some stars in there. The way I usually do that is with this handy little tool right here. So I'll take this and kind of dip it in the water just a little bit, and then I take a brush and I get it pretty wet, and then whatever color the stars I'm doing, typically white, I'll just dab pretty wet white paint around the whole thing. If you get it too wet, they're gonna be like thin and watery, and if you don't get it wet enough, then the pieces that land won't always be perfectly round, and they'll give you some like non-star looking type shapes, and you don't want that. So, well, that just happened because there's too much water on here. So I'll deal with that. But what you do is you just stick this thing in here and you spin it slowly and kind of point it toward the area that you want them. And it just flicks like nice organic specks of stars. And gives you a pretty consistent result. As with the paintbrush flicking, you can sometimes get some wads on there that you wouldn't want. Grab some TP, dab that off there. Perfect. Okay, so that's kind of how to do the nebulas. If you have any questions, give them to me in the comments so I know how to answer them next time. And I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.